Welcome to the Town of Emmitsburg's town meeting for the evening of February 3rd. At this time, I ask you to please silence your cell phones of any rings, media sounds, notifications, and such. And I welcome you here tonight and invite you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Upcoming future meetings include the Board of Commissioners workshop on student housing on February 10th at 7 p.m. here in the town office and on Zoom. We also have a Parks and Rec committee meeting on February 11th at 7:30 here in the town office. Our next Planning Commission meeting will be February 24th at 7 p.m. here in the town office and on Zoom. And our Board of Commissioners meeting, our next regular meeting, will be March 3rd here in the town office and on Zoom at 7 p.m. And I know this is far off as of right now, but just wanted to announce, and I will continue to announce at every meeting, that we had a change for our budget meeting that was scheduled in May. It's also printed on the Emmitsburg calendars. We had to change that date. So in the calendar, it's reflected as May 19th. It will now be held on May 12th. So I just wanted to, if you were interested in attending the budget meeting, there is a date change. So please make that note accordingly. Are there any other meetings that I'm missing at this time? Nope. Okay. Hearing none. Moving right on to looking at our meeting minutes for the meeting of January 13th. I trust you've had a chance to look over the meeting minutes. Is there a motion to accept the meeting minutes as presented?
I just got one small change.
Go for it.
It's the very first one. As it is, my name is O'Hagan rather than Hagan.
Oh. Is that right at the top where it says present?
Page 5.
Oh, page 5. Found it. Okay, good. Any other comments, changes, questions, clarifications? Okay, is there a motion to accept the meeting minutes with the proposed spell check?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to the police report.
Good evening. It's still myself, Deputy Honaker, and Deputy Bartholow. We used 6 holiday annual days of leave, 4 sick days. Moving to the back, we had no fleet issues. I'm not sure why it got checked, but no fleet issues. Handled 146 calls for service. We didn't have any criminal arrests this month. 17 traffic stops, 4 win cards. On the 27th, we had a call at Mother Seton where there was a suspicious package. I really don't have many details on that as CID, our criminal investigation division's investigating it. So there will be more next month to give on that. But it's an active investigation. So okay. We've been conducting a lot of checks there and we will continue to. We did get a new reporting system this last month and we're still trying to figure out how to pull our monthly statistics out of that. It's been kind of a thing. So hopefully by next month, we'll be able to continue to do the second sheet that we had before. But right now it's in the works.
It's always good to learn new software,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, comments? I have just one. I'm still receiving complaints, one from a resident on Main Street and one from a resident on South Seton about the speed on South Seaton, especially through where it changes over to 25 and in that crosswalk area. So I'm just needing for more reinforcement and upping the number of tickets
Okay.
at this point,
Sure.
because for people who are trying to turn out onto South Seaton, making a left or right in peak condition, when peak traffic is really hard because in that area, it's just not 25.
What time are you seeing this?
Usually in the morning. Actually, it could be all
Rush
times.
hour times?
Rush hour time seems to be,
Okay.
when people are trying to go to and from work, and honestly, from what I've seen, it's not even necessarily people who live in Maryland.
Yeah.
You
get a
know,
lot of PA traffic.
so, but thank you, because there was concern about making that crossing, going through the crosswalk there safely, and then having people pull around or being able to have time to pull out to make a turn onto South Seaton in the 25-mile-an-hour zone.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Good luck
Other
with the new
questions?
reporting system.
We'll have it figured out.
Sounds like more training is on the horizon. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the town manager's reports, turning over to Ms. Willetts.
Good evening. This will be the town manager's report for December of 2024. I'll just highlight a few things related to streets. There was an accident on West Main Street and staff picked up the damaged streetlight and then had to rewire a new streetlight and reinstall it in front of 16 to 20 West Main Street. For parks, after the turkey trot, they winterized the restroom building in EU Jane Myers Park. We had our contractor remove the sunshades from the ADA playground, and a contractor had to repair a door lock at the Memorial Park concession stand. Related to wastewater, we treated an average of 751,850 gallons per day and consumed roughly 255,208 gallons, which meant 66.06% of the wastewater treated in December was wild water. We had no spills of untreated sewage in December. We did exceed the plant's design capacity 11 days. We did receive 4.2 inches of precipitation that month, which was about 10 days of rain. At the time of that report, we had a deficit of precipitation of about 1 inch. Rainbow Lake, related to water now on page 12, Rainbow Lake is still at the spillway level of 16.6 feet. Below that, you'll see the well depths for the month of December, as well as the monthly average depths for 2023 and 2024. For water production, we produced an average of 255,208 gallons per day and consumed an average of 256,571, which meant the amount of backwash water in the month of December was roughly 12.98%. Trash pickup will remain Mondays during the month of February. Following page, I listed some of the meetings I attended in December. Just a few noteworthy items. Staff responded on December 24th to a frozen temporary water line on DePaul Street. Staff and a contractor repaired a water leak on Fraley Road. It was the 10-inch main line that was cracked. The contractor at the time was wrapping up the backwash project at the water plant that has now been completed. A contractor pumped out the backwash pond. The LG Sonic was pulled from the lake for the winter. Staff flushed hydrants on DePaul Street due to some discolored water complaints. We met with MDE for the annual Emmitsburg Dam inspection, and staff cleaned out Lagoon number 2 at the wastewater treatment plant. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Willetts regarding the reports? Okay, thank you. Moving on to the grant administrator reports.
I'll highlight just a few things. Anything that's basically changed from the last report. Related to the construction of the new bathroom concession stand building community park. The building was finally set on January 22nd, and final hookups and remaining items are currently being completed. Then on page 16, for the North Seaton Avenue water line and Green Street project upgrade. We are currently in the final design phase. Additional funding is needed before the project can go to bid for construction. We're anticipating it now not going to bid for construction till fall of 2025. And the construction is estimated to take about 18 months.
Okay.
There's been a lot of talk about the new welcome signs. As everybody knows, we're at the mercy of our grant funding agencies a lot of time, and sometimes they take 6 to 12 months to get the funding. However, we expect the signs to be installed by the end of this month. The contractor will remove the old ones and install the new ones. The Creamery Road Pump Station, I just actually got a final email that we should have permanent power the week of February 17th. And then they'll start their 30-day demonstration phase where there's a lot of testing to make sure that everything is working properly. So we're rounding the corner on that. And then on page 17, as everybody's aware, we did receive the Cedar Avenue Community Garden Expansion Grant. We received word that we were awarded the email. However, we have not received any grant agreement yet, so we can't do anything until we receive that. And then she listed on page 17 some of the pending grants that she's waiting for announcements on. And then on page 18, some upcoming grant opportunities that she will be working on for the North Seaton Avenue project mostly.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions?
Hi, I have a few questions. Since our water fund is in the hole, I wanted just to clarify a few of our grants. On page 1522-16, it's $1 million grant that we received in 2021 for the water treatment clarifier.
Mhm.
Have we received any of that grant yet?
Yeah, that's a bond. It's actually a bond initiative through the state. And we do submit reimbursement for the invoices when we receive them. We have to pay them first. So you will see, I did pull it because I did see the negative in the water fund. There is a substantial reimbursement that we are waiting on. They don't turn it around very quickly. So we're waiting about $90,000 on the clarifier from the state for reimbursement.
So we submit for the money to come back to us once you get the invoice.
Yeah, so once we get the invoice, we have to pay it. We have to wait for the canceled check, and then we can submit for reimbursement.
Okay, and then on the same page, 23-5 and 2313 for the Rainbow Lake parking lot, is our portion coming out of SIP or the water fund?
That's all from your capital improvements, Fund 2, general fund.
And then a little bit further down, 2318 and 24-3, the DePaul Street water line.
Mhm.
Have we received any of that money yet?
For the reimbursements,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to look to see if we have. I know she has submitted for them. I don't know if
Like we started construction back in August.
Right.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I'm sure she has, because I actually have the list here. Actually, I don't have that list. But I don't know how much she has actually received. I know she's been submitting for reimbursements.
Okay. And then page 16, design and construction of a Creamery Road pump station. Is that the sewer fund?
Yes.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Ms. Willits, and extend our thanks to Ms. Shaw for all of her hard work. Going on to the town operations specialist report. Ms. Willits, I assume it's you again.
Yeah. So she's been working on as you know, we got a grant for 4 wayfinder signs. Those signs were just ordered. At my direction, she's assisting myself and Agelia with a vacant property ordinance tax that'll be coming to the board sometime maybe in the spring. I know she's been working with the mayor on the Welcome to Emmitsburg packet as well as the Emmitsburg neighborhood meals. I think they're close to getting dates set for the hot meals, if not already. Got it. Okay. She's working with, to get some disc golf signage, and then scheduling some training for the emergency preparedness, and then working with department heads on the EAP for each of their departments. And then she listed some of the training that she's been attending.
Okay.
I know she's starting to really buckle down on the farmer's market as well.
Oh, perfect.
Mhm.
Thank you. Questions regarding the town operations report? Okay, hearing none, we are moving on. Thank you again. So now we go on to the town planners report.
Good evening. This is the town planners report from January 2025. During the month of January, 3 permit applications were processed, and there were several applicants who needed help with their zoning applications. Regarding development updates, Federal Stone is under construction. We were recently notified that, they made some changes to their improvement plans, but we have yet to receive those and have our engineer look at them before it's approved by the county. Seton Village subdivision plats are under review by the county health department. And 2 more I would like to mention are Emmett Ridge. We received their forest delineation, forest conservation, and preliminary plans. The developer is proposing 48 residential units, and the planning commission will review on February 24th. And another one I want to mention is the Brookfield Phase 5. Improvement plans have been received and under review. The developer is proposing 10 residential units, and this will also be reviewed by the planning commission on the 24th. The comprehensive plan is also in progress, and there will be a presentation later this evening. And related to grants, we're accepting applications from property owners for the community legacy grant. They're due on February 28th. And I've listed some meetings that I attended during the month of January.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions for Najila? No? I just have one question, and it may not be summarized in this because it was January. And do you have any updates on the application that was submitted for the National Civil War Monument by any chance?
So he submitted a Board of Appeals application, which our town attorney looked at, and their interpretation was that it wouldn't be a variance or a special exception, so he would need to do a text amendment. So I have a meeting with him tomorrow to help him walk through the application process for that.
For a text amendment?
Yeah, to allow a memorial in the CR zoning district.
Oh, the CR zoning. Is that east of 15?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to commissioner comments. All right, we'll start with Commissioner Hagan.
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Turnquist.
I have 2 quick things. On the parking enforcement report, I noticed it looks like 25 citations for the snow emergency route. So I was just wondering how many cars were ticketed because they weren't moved?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's been a lot of chatter on Facebook about the intersection at Rudders and then at 15, coming off of 15 across from Harney Road. Are we able to put one of our speed trailers there?
That's outside of, that's a state road. We need state permission. We can. We'd have to ask, we have to get state permission since 140 is a state road, so we can ask them.
Okay.
I think
Maybe
we just
that would help slow people down.
we recently reached out to them and What'd they say?
Yeah, we
Recall?
did, and I've been in contact with them. The one thing we do need is a light at that far entrance, I guess the tractor and trailer entrance. But to be honest with you, it's just people.
Mhm.
That's not the only place that this is happening.
Oh, I'm sure.
South Seaton and Route 15, I think we've ran 5 accidents there in the last month and a half, and it's people not paying attention. Even when we're out on accident scenes, you know, we're having to duck out of the way of people, and we have people not paying attention. It's just people, you know. If I don't know what they're paying attention to, but they're sure not paying attention to their driving. And the one call last week at Harney Road and 140, that had nothing to do with the intersection. Unfortunately, a gentleman had a medical emergency, and it happened. So it's a society, and I know I probably shouldn't say that, but you know me, I usually don't hold back with my words, so I apologize for that. But
Are we able to set up radar there?
oh yeah, unfortunately, it's state highway again. So here it is, state police. I mean, I guess we can put our deputies out there, but you know, I really personally, I go into Rudders a lot more than I should, and that intersection is not that bad. If you pay attention to what you're doing, you can see better now than you could before. And it's you know, they cut the bank off a little bit. There's some more traffic, but it's you know, it's a busy area out there, being our business district. But you know, when I talk to State Highway again about the light, I'll also talk to them about that.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Mr. Mayor, when you say talk to them about the light, do you mean like a traffic light or a street light? Because
No,
I know,
a street light. It is very dark out
yeah,
there.
that I was going
It's
to
very
follow
dark, and
up about
you know,
that.
so we'll get on them about that.
Okay.
See what
Yeah,
we
that
do.
when we submitted the plans to the county or state, when Rudders was coming in, they did not, they did their traffic study. They did not see the need for a light, but maybe now that it's there, we can, you know, show them the need for it.
I figured they were going to add it when they put in the park and ride.
I think,
That's
yeah,
5 years behind.
I think that was their kind of gotcha. We'll do it with the park. A lot of improvements were supposed to come when that park and ride was coming. So I think that's what we're waiting for.
Well, a lot of the intersections up and down 40 are not lit.
Right.
So it's the same as
Right.
the rest of them from here to Westminster.
We can always reach out and see where they are with their park and ride and go from there. Mhm.
Okay. Commissioner Turnquist, did you have any other comments?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Sweeney,
I'm good at this time.
thank you. Commissioner Hoover. Oh, you're welcome. I only have a few comments, and that's just to continue to promote that we have many openings on our committees. So please, we are looking for volunteers and participants to come help out our town. We have a great Parks and Rec committee, as well as an awesome Citizens Advisory Committee. So we please ask you to step forward if this is something that interests you. Also, thank you to everybody who moved their vehicles off the streets during the snow. And just a reminder for people who may misinterpret, it's not just your vehicle has to be off the street until the plow comes. I think there's that misunderstanding too. It's for the whole duration of the snow emergency, as long as that's in effect. And then just something to follow up with, hunting in Fraley near the park. I know the hunting guidelines say that you have to be like, 300 yards or feet from a residence. But since the trails go very, very close to Fraley, are there any guidelines for hunters right over the line who are shooting
We don't allow hunting on that property.
on Fraley?
Mm-mm. If you get a hunting permit through the town, it shows you where the red zones are, and that's considered a red zone. The
It
town
is.
only permits hunting up in the watershed area
Okay.
on that property.
Okay. I did not know that.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of hunting going on back there then.
Okay.
And I don't know.
We do have a contact with our DNR
Okay, well, see,
representative.
part of the most of that Fraley is not ours.
Yeah, so
And-
whatever
and
is
And it
ours,
is
they're
out
not
of town
allowed.
limits.
Right.
Right, so if it's on that's what I'm asking,
Right.
because technically it's on private land, but you also border the park and the walking trail is very close to that border.
Right.
And sometimes the hunters are right there, even if they're, so I'm just concerned.
But there's no dwelling unit is the issue.
Exactly,
No dwelling unit, so there's no regulation.
exactly. So is that something that,
I think we'll just, Jess has a contact to the DNR warden that comes and represents the area up here.
Yeah.
We'll certainly send him an email and at least make him aware of the situation and if there's anything that he can do.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
okay. Go ahead.
If they do annex into town in the future, that will be part of the red zone then. But I think there is several people in Emmitsburg who have permission to hunt on the property. I don't know who it is. But I
No.
think there's a couple. No, not for, from the.
Oh,
top.
on Fraley, yeah, not from the
Fraley,
town, yeah,
Yeah, on the
Right.
Fraley property.
Yeah.
Right.
That's who I'm.
on private land, probably.
And I think it's just a matter of like, I know my husband was walking the dog on that far side of the trail today and the hunters were right there. And I don't know exactly where the line is between the park and for the Fraley property. I don't know. Even though it just seemed really close to the walking path. So, and it's been ongoing. Just concerned. I want to make sure they're firing in the right direction and away from the park since the trail is right there. That's all I had. And moving on to mayor's comments.
Okay, I'll try to be real quick. The Emmitsburg Neighborhood Meal Program. It's going to be kicking off on March the 12th. And this is real important for the commissioners because the town of Emmitsburg has the first meal. So while staff is taking care of getting the food and prep for that night, anybody that can help us out from 5:30 to 7, that'd be great. The nonprofits of the town have really pulled together and are working together better than I've ever seen. And we're starting out once a month with this meal program, with hopefully expanding it to hopefully maybe 2 to 3 times a month. So that's a great thing.
Where is the first one at
The
here?
first one, they're all going to be held initially at the Fire Department Activities Building on Creamery Road. We're trying to find a place in the middle of town that's closer for people that have to walk. But I think that was the only place available that there's a committee that worked that out. So I think that's the only place they could find for right now. So
And you said that's starting at 5:30?
5:30, yes.
Okay.
All right. And in case you all didn't know, there's something on Facebook called Emmitsburg Cares. What a great program. I love Emmitsburg Cares. I look at it every morning. The problem with Emmitsburg Cares and town issues, there's no one on Emmitsburg Cares that is going to fix your problems. As a matter of fact, the only thing they do is it creates more problems. And I'll give you a quick example. We had a family that had to place a dumpster down on East Main Street because of a sudden death of a family member. They needed to get the property cleaned out, and they got a permit to put the dumpster there. And that became a hot issue for 3 or 4 days because it was brought to the attention on Emmitsburg Cares. So I had some people call me, and I had people. So I asked the one person that called, I said, do you live down that way? How many times do you go out that roadway there? And they said, no, I don't go down there, but I did just to see how bad it was. So what that did was created more of a problem. So anybody on, you can put whatever you want on Emmitsburg Cares, but they're not going to help you. Please call the town office. Please call me. My phone number's out there. You can send me a text. You can do whatever. And Emmitsburg Cares is a great Facebook page. Like I say, I read it all the time. But when it comes to town problems, that they're not going to be able to help you with that. So just call the town office and we'll take care of things. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, we're turning to public comments. And we have one individual signed up, and that's Brian McKenney for public comment. You'll have 4 minutes to speak. If you just state your name, turn on the microphone, and let us know if you live inside or outside town limits.
Go ahead and talk.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say you can state your name and whether or not you live inside or outside town limits, and then you have 4 minutes.
Gotcha. Brian McKinney, inside of Emmitsburg, 34 St. Joseph's Lane, Emmitsburg, Maryland. Tonight, I would like to address an issue that we have with the town garden, which is soil. And the idea that I would like to propose to you all, a program that I would like to propose to you tonight, is a soil reclamation and remediation program that can be facilitated through property that we already have, existing property that we already have, and a soil composition or soil mound that already exists. With this program, it takes a little bit of time to get it established and started, but once it is going, it can sustain itself and offset any costs further down the road for us, the town, for the community garden to purchase any more soil. We will then be able to sustain and create our own soil dirt that meets the requirements for growing vegetables and other things in. So that's pretty much the whole idea right there.
Okay. So do you have, just a question, do you have a proposal or details on what that would entail that can?
I would definitely I'd definitely be happy to set that up with you, a meeting with where the site would be. I can give you the basic information right now. The site would be already at the I guess if you want to call it, for the lack of better words, the landfill area that we have right now, currently the dump site that we currently have. Separating a section of that soil out, mixing it with the tree chippings and shreddings and everything that are already over there, mixing that into the soil, allowing the soil to sit and remediate itself through Mother Nature's process of just natural leaching. And then turning that material, doing a testing at the end of 1 year, which is what's recommended by the state, analyzing the soil at that point after 1 year, and then go ahead and use that. And that's something that also all of the community of the town of Emmitsburg would be welcome to use as well. I mean, obviously issues, insurance liability and everything else would have to be addressed to mitigate any unforeseen issues that may occur. And yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's all I had. Is that something that can be, that you can forward those details to town staff? Because I don't know how that works in with the community garden grant, whether it would be cost neutral or something, but if you could forward all the details to town staff, and I don't think we need to put Parks and Rec on it. But thank you for bringing that forward, because if that's something that's going to help, with something we should look into.
Yep.
Thank you
very much.
But please follow up with an email, please. Yes. Thank you, Mr. McKinney. Okay. That's it for public comments. Next on the agenda, we do not have any administrative business, so we're moving on to our consent agenda. We can take both of these together if nobody on the board has to abstain for any reason. Okay, so is there a motion to accept the resignation of Melissa McKinney for the Citizens Advisory Committee, and and a motion to reappoint Sheila Pittenger to the Citizens Advisory Committee with a term of February 6, 2025 to February 6, 2027.
I'll make a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Everybody said aye, correct? That's okay. Thank you. Moving on to the treasurer's report. Commissioner Turnquist.
So here is the cash activity as of January 22nd, 2025. Our cash balance on January 1st was $8,670,016. We had deposits totaling $609,469. Withdrew $957,983. An operating balance forward of $8,321,502. The top 10 checks are there in the center of the page. And then our current fund balances are general fund, 2.15 million. Capital projects, $236,838. Storm water management, $1,663. Our water fund is in the red, $126,567. ARPA, 2.4 million. Sewer, 3.46 million, for a total of $8,142,220. And then I have a question, Miss Willett, sorry. Up the top 10 checks, the backwash project, no, I'm sorry. Q2 FY25 Bay restoration fee. Do we pay that out of water or sewer?
Bay restoration fee is it water? Water.
Can we double check? Because I
No.
believe it should be sewer.
It should be sewer.
So and it may be.
Yeah, let me pull my budget real quick. It should be sewer. It's sewer. Oops. Yeah, it's sewer. It's sewer.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all.
And I will just point out that there's $89,318 that we're waiting for reimbursement on the water clarifier for that, for the water fund.
So with us being in the red, because I think last time we were like $300 in the black.
Right.
So I assume we had some big projects and checks that were cut.
Yeah, we had one, was a payment to MDE for, there was a loan payment for the South Seaton water line project that was years and years ago. And then that was about 25,000. And then the clarifier, like I mentioned, was about 90,000. And then you just had other miscellaneous, heating oil, lab fees, legal fees,
Okay,
payroll, just other miscellaneous things.
sure. All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right. We are moving on to the Planning Commission report.
I got you. Okay, so the Planning Commission met on January 27th. And it's required by code to be organized every year during January. So the Planning Commission reorganized. We have a new chair, vice chair, and the same secretary. And the Planning Commission discussed and provided comments on the current draft of the comprehensive plan.
That's about it. All right, thank you.
The only thing I want to add to that is that we do have one potential possible candidate for alternate. I need to reach out to him, but
Okay,
they're not feeling well the past week or two. I haven't done that call, but I'll get that done this week.
all right, thank you. All right, moving on to our agenda items. So we're looking at agenda item number 1 for consideration. Approval of the Catoctin Football Club proposal to convert Field 1 from baseball to a soccer field. And before we begin with that, I just wanted to clarify, because I think in the Parks and Rec meeting notes versus what is stated in the proposal name a different field. So I just want to verify we are looking at Field 1, right? Because in the Parks and Rec, I think it said Field 3.
That's correct. It's Field 1, which is the one behind the town office directly, or not directly, you got the open field, and then the first field back is the field in question.
Okay. All right. Um, looking at the proposal, it looks like they are basically saying that they will absorb the cost to convert the baseball field into a soccer field, including taking out the pitcher's mound, putting down the grass and such.
You have a representative here.
Oh, yeah. Come on up. So
And there are two on Zoom, I'm just told.
oh, I'm sure. Did you? Oh, if you just turn on your microphone, state your name. Did you want to talk to the proposal?
Yeah, I'm Jesse. Well, my name is David Ventura. I'm from Thurmont. I am the coach and director of the club. Jesse Enser, our treasurer slash vice president, is the one that wrote the proposal. And basically, we just, we're taking responsibility, or we want to convert it, and we'll assume or absorb the cost to convert it according to the proposal that was sent in. So
Okay. And this is because you want to, I assume, expand because enrollment is going up?
correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If for some reason that did not go through, how would that impact your program?
If we didn't convert it,
Mm-hmm.
we would have to find different areas or different places to place the kids.
Uh-huh.
In that area right there. I mean, we actually need more space in that, but that's one of the questions I was going to ask tonight was was our meeting room that we're going to use, the baseball fields that have the concession stand, and I don't know what you call the top part of that, the announcer's box.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be using that for our meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So what, I guess what would be the threshold for our club in order for us to acquire field space there also, on top of what we have there?
So that was one of my questions. I was going to ask, how many fields do you really want to acquire? And
All of them.
Huh?
All of them.
Everything?
So
So that's really the question I had, as far as we also have baseball that comes to town.
Yeah.
And the impact it would have being able to hold both sports. Like we
Yeah.
want to be able.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm speaking like it would be nice to have room for both sports.
yeah, of course. Yes.
Versus, having
Yeah.
everything convert to soccer.
definitely. Yes.
So at some point,
Yeah.
do you foresee being able to work within your provided space? Or are you going to be able to make that work if if we don't give you every single field in our town?
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay.
So we're very optimistic at the beginning,
Yeah.
thinking that we were going to have a certain amount of players, which was like 30 or 40
Yeah,
for our first season, but we ended up having over 100.
right.
And then because of registrations or, coaching and stuff like that, we dropped down to about 80 plus.
Mhm.
This season, we opened our registration, and on day one, compared to our registration in the fall, we were up like 70%
Mhm.
already.
Mhm.
So I think that we're gonna grow it.
Mhm.
So it's just gonna depend on how we manage the field space and the program.
Mhm.
Because obviously we don't want to grow too big and then not stick to our core values or what our mission,
Mhm.
which is to have a great program for the Emmitsburg community and
Mhm.
and Northern Frederick. So I mean, we're not looking to get all the field space. We want to have baseball. I love baseball. My daughter played baseball. My son played baseball his whole, in Thurmont. He played the entire time, and then high school.
Mhm.
So he's now in college, but but we would love to have the opportunity to, I guess, figure out field space if we need it in the future. Right now, with just field one, we're super thankful, and we're like just, super happy with what we have. We're not asking to have additional field space. We're just with that, it would set us up for the next year at least.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're not looking for an answer of future fields now?
Right. No, no.
Okay, all right. Questions, comments, Commissioner Hoover?
But the only question I have really, I guess, is more for staff or maybe possibly Commissioner Sweeney. How is this going to impact or affect the current baseball teams that are using the fields?
Jessica probably answer that better than I could, but
Yeah.
'cause she's doing the scheduling. For the
Yeah,
field.
we, I had to just reach out to all the current leagues that were using our ball fields. And that ball field, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was used probably the least throughout the seasons. And they only held 3 tournaments on that field. We've already reached out to all of them and they were completely understandable. I mean, one was disappointed, but they can make do without that field.
So they would still be able to hold a baseball tournament even with field 1 no longer available?
We currently have 15 tournaments already reserved,
Yeah.
baseball tournaments.
Okay.
They got a lot reserved for this year from what. she
So-
told me.
For
I
what
think it's-
field?
For the Memorial Park.
For all
and
the fields.
All the fields.
Mhm.
So would that, including field 1?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
So as long as it doesn't impact, I mean, they can
Yeah.
still do the baseball and they can add now more of the soccer and both can
Yeah.
coexist.
Yeah.
Without,
Win-win.
yeah, exactly. It's a win-win if they can both
Yeah.
exist
Yeah.
and coexist together
Yeah.
and, without a negative impact to either or. So I think it's,
Yes.
Awesome.
I think the one thing that it's not in your proposal that I would ask the board is it something that should be considered with in the event that your club gets so huge and you move somewhere else?
Mhm.
Do we expect the applicant then to convert it back to a baseball field at their cost? How does that work? Or do we absorb that as a town? Now, that may never happen.
We would absorb that cost
Okay.
to convert it back, but we're not going.
We're hoping you stay here for
We're
the long
hoping
term.
to grow in the community.
Yes.
So one of the original meeting that we had with Mr. Davis was that we're looking for a home, right? So long-term home, and the club, our club's mission is to create a free recreational soccer
Mhm.
environment for the community. So first, we have to build a club. We have a plan in action, whether it takes 3 or 5 years, but the goal is to have or to give free recreational soccer for the community. So that's why I was talking about the other field space. If not that field space, we're already looking at space at Mother Seton. So we're actively looking for different spaces. We don't want to take somebody else's space, but
So the whole, if you build it, they will come, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we haven't even finished building it and they're coming. So,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the
Yeah.
response that you've received has been amazing and the number of people in the community, even some of our commissioners and town staff whose children have signed up and are participating
Yeah.
and have only said wonderful things. So it's really been a good activity, and to see those fields in use and the kids coming out and being active. So absolutely, we do want to keep you here in our
Yeah.
community. So
more things to come, bigger things to come.
any questions? Commissioner Turnquist?
Is number 2 on the diagram an actual baseball field?
It used to be, but it's no longer.
Right, so there's no diamond or anything there, right?
No.
It's just a grass
It was
field.
taken out.
Okay, so that would leave one ball field in Memorial Park, no, in Community Park.
In the
It would leave number 3.
in the E. Eugene Myers Park,
Correct.
and then one over in Memorial.
Well, I think there's 2
Four.
in Memorial.
There's 4 in
There's
Memorial.
4 in
Four.
4 in
Yeah.
Memorial?
Yeah.
Are they all softball?
No.
One softball.
3 baseball.
Yeah.
Are you
So-
serious? There's 4 back there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I stand corrected.
Okay, so that would still give us 4 baseball fields total between the 2 parks.
Mhm.
And then do we charge a fee for baseball or soccer teams to use the field?
Not at this time.
Okay. And on this diagram, exactly where is the concession stand gonna go? Is that by 3?
Yeah,
Already
look,
in.
Yeah, it's already in.
It's already
Right.
in.
Or I know it's in, I just haven't been over there to see
you
where
see
it
where
was.
the turnaround is. So you got field 3, and then to the right is like the turnaround area. And then there's a grassy area between the turnaround and the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's gonna go right there.
There used
More
to be
closer
one
to
there
the round,
nowadays.
the end of the circle.
It's right,
Yeah.
right at the center of the circle.
That was such a huge hubbub in Southgate when it came in. And when people asked what was going in, they were all very excited. Just thought
Well, there
I'd
used
pass
to be
that
a
on.
concession stand there.
It was very interesting watching them do it.
Mhm.
Before, there was a caboose, a big red caboose, a big train caboose. And it was there for a couple of years, and then it's now a school on the eastern shore, a preschool that we donated
Oh,
to them.
okay.
They come and got it.
So are we still keeping the gray building that's in the parking lot?
Which great.
Is that,
That's
wasn't
Lions Club,
That's
though.
Lions Club.
Lions Club, so that's
That
separate?
stays, that's separate.
Okay, okay. I was just wondering. I didn't know if it was replacing. Okay. All right, thank you.
The only thing I would ask, if this is approved, that they coordinate the work with town staff.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, so commissioners, what are your thoughts as far as the proposal?
I'm good with it.
You're good with it?
I'm good with it also.
I'm ready to vote.
So is there a way to add to the motion in the sense of that we can approve Catoctin Football Club's proposal to convert Field 1 from a baseball to a soccer field, as long as they coordinate construction efforts with the town staff and agree to convert it back if for some reason they leave? That good? Not getting any response here, I feel like.
I'll accept the motion as presented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hagan. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Let's go.
I need to speak with you a moment
Yes.
before you leave. Okay.
Congratulations. Yeah. All right. Agenda item number 2 for consideration, approval of bid for the 2025-2027 pool management contract.
All right. So, as you know, we've had the same pool company for several years. They always signed a 3-year contract with the town. Unfortunately, when this was put back out to bid, they declined to bid this go around, citing staffing issues. So when we did put it out to bid, we put it out to bid on December 3rd. Bids were due on January 13th. Bids were opened on January 15th. The RFP was posted not only on the town website, but also the MML classifieds, the eMaryland Marketplace, and we also sent emails to potential contractors. On page 37, we received 2 bids. You'll see it PMI Pool Management and USA Management. The apparent low bidder at the time they were open was PMI. I had Ms. King work through the contract, work through the numbers between both companies. PMI's estimated cost, and I'll explain, is about $89,577. What they do is they invoice the customer only for hours worked by their lifeguards and gate attendant. Unlike the previous management company, we were billed a flat rate for the pool monthly, no matter if the pool was open 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, 15 days that month, or 5 days that month. So this company will bill us only for the hours worked.
So does that include if they have to close for rain, for example, or no?
If they
Yes.
close for if they close, then we do not get billed.
Okay.
We took the total cost. We took maximum would be 3 lifeguards or 4 lifeguards. You have 3 lifeguards working all the time and 1 gate attendant. So maximum cost, if you have your 4 lifeguards, plus your manager, the maximum price would be $101,837. That's the max price. That includes, that would be if they were there every day of the season, every hour of the season. On average, that is reduced between 10 and 20%. So if you take it at 10 to 20%, 10% would make the price 91,653. The 20% would make it about 81,000. So on average, we're estimating anywhere between 86,000 and 89,000 for contract price. That does include all the emergency repairs and covers all aspects of the pool management, safety training.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Ms. King, close the door, please? Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. It covers pretty much everything. It covers all your employees. It covers the cleaning, the opening and closing of the pool, monthly safety training, certified lifeguards, community-focused lessons, safety workshops. They have been in business for 32 years. There is also an app that the town would have access to that we can then see basically everything that they see. It seems like they're a very transparent company. Is their CEO is on Zoom if they have any questions for him. Ms. King did do reference checks and they all came back very favorable. So in looking and comparing them with USA Management, staff does recommend the PMI pool management company.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Commissioner Turnquist? No?
Yeah, do you know how much our current contract is?
Here, I have it right here. For the last season, the 2024 season, the contract price was $79,212.
And then do you know what income we earned last year for either memberships or
I
admission?
can give you that. 1 second. I have the 2024 audited pool revenue. I don't have,
That should work.
okay, let me pull that real quick.
And the last contract was for just last year or the last 3 years?
I have the contract price for just last year.
Oh, okay.
Pool revenue was, let me find it, pool admissions audited 24 was roughly 39,000 and then another 3,500 for season passes. So about 42,000 in revenue.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify, the contract price for PMI is for 1 year or 3 years?
It's for 3 years.
Okay. And so the price that's listed is the price that would be each year?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
That price actually is an estimate based on the number of hours we expect them to work.
Right. So we estimated about
Could be a little more, could be a little-
89,000.
Could be a little more, a little less.
Right. It could be more, it could be less. It depends on the season that we have. But the max, Sabrina figured it out, the max that you would have would be the 101,837
If they never had a closed day,
if they never had a closed day.
impossible.
And full staff. So if it's, and full staff. So your busy weekends, possibly you're going to have full staff, but you have a Monday or a Tuesday, maybe it's cloudy, it's overcast, and they're only going to have 2 lifeguards or a gate attendant. That's going to reduce the cost as well.
Does it include the fee for opening the pool, which is generally more chemicals?
Yes. Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
And it's kind of off topic, but is there a water meter there at the pool so we can track the water usage?
We do. We have a meter at the pool. Mhm.
Any other questions?
Mhm.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion is to accept staff's recommendation in PMI pool management. I'm not sure how to say it in a number amount though.
Estimated.
At the estimated rate of a maximum of $101,000.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Nope. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries with 4 in favor, and Commissioner Sweeney is not available right now. He is absent. All right. Okay, presentation. Oh, wait, I probably need to state that we are obviously agenda item number 3, the public hearing regarding student housing, and agenda item number 4, the rental registration program. Both of those items were postponed. So we're moving on to agenda item number 5, which is presentation of the current draft of the 2025 comprehensive plan update. Turning it over. You are up next.
Thank you. Sure. All right, so this is a presentation on the current draft of the 2025 comprehensive plan. I believe the board and the mayor have received copies of the plan. Just wanted to present you with a more in-depth overview of the current draft. So next slide, I guess. Yeah. You already may know that the purpose of the comprehensive plan is to outline the land use infrastructure and growth strategies for the town. It's a required document under the state's land use article, and it's required to be updated every 10 years. The last plan was adopted in November 2015, so we're getting close to the 10-year mark. Next slide. So the draft you have includes updated information about the town's population, housing, economy, environment, natural resources, land use, transportation, and community facilities, as well as goals and objectives related to these topics. It incorporates the 3 pillars of sustainability, social, economic, and environmental factors. And the plan also includes information from workshops and surveys that provided public input. It incorporates smart growth elements, which is a planning approach to creating communities using principles such as compact and efficient development design, range of housing opportunities and choices, designing areas that reflect the town's unique history, culture, and environment, or preserve open space and critical environment areas, etc. And the plan also proposes a new growth boundary and a growth opportunity area to accommodate future growth. Next slide. So the document is divided into 10 sections, and I will give you a gist of each of them. If you want to go to the next slide. So the first chapter talks about how the plan is organized, and it also includes the 12 planning visions that reflect the state's aspiration to develop and implement sound growth and development policy. So the 12 visions that you see up there: quality of life and sustainability, public participation, growth areas, community design, infrastructure, transportation, housing, economic development, environmental protection, resource conservation, stewardship, and implementation. These are required components, or it has to be mentioned in the plan. So it's been included in the first chapter, along with the mention of the 3 pillars of sustainability, because those 3 pillars kind of provided a framework for understanding public input. And the public input information is in the second chapter, which is on the next slide. It mentions how the workshops were held last year and the year before, and the surveys that were conducted, and how the information from all these were synthesized into themes that relate to the pillars of sustainability. So under economic development, there's mention of people's perception of the economic or the economic condition of the town and job opportunities. Participants were asked to talk about, what kind of future they wanted to see, what kind of industries they wanted to see, and they provided responses such as, retail development, small scale retail development, and also distribution centers and production businesses, R&D sectors. There was a whole range. And there was also input regarding supporting local businesses. Many expressed even when they want to buy local products, they end up going elsewhere due to lack of options. And then when asked about what types of business they would like to see, they mentioned things like childcare and youth services, practical services like hardware stores and family-oriented businesses, or family-oriented restaurants. Another theme was infrastructure improvements that could boost economic development, such as ensuring enough water and sewer, road accessibility, main street improvements, sidewalk improvements and parking, etc. So that's under economic development. And then under community development, which is another pillar of sustainability, the key themes were engagement and improvement of amenities such as childcare. Affordable housing was another theme, and also the mention of helping low and moderate income households. And then under sustainability, the themes were preservation of natural areas in town to maintain the town's rural character or small town character, and recognition of the impacts of climate change, and the awareness of environmental issues and community-led initiatives. So based on all the input, the vision statements that you see towards the end of that chapter, pages 2-5 and 2-6. So these are some broad aspirational descriptions of what the community wants to achieve in the long term. So that's chapter 2. And then from chapter 3 to chapter 9, they're focused on each topics that I would mention earlier, such as, housing, transportation, and things like that. So the third chapter includes historical population trends from 1960 to 2020. And the purpose of that is to show the fluctuations linked to factors such as infrastructure development, economic opportunities. It talks about how the population showed a decline during the last census period and how it was influenced by economic factors or even the pandemic, and talks about gender and age distribution, housing composition, housing affordability, which is mentioned using the area median income for the county, for Frederick County. And then if you got a chance to look through the whole document, you'll see that each section or each chapter from 3 to 9 has goals, objectives, and strategies related to those topics. So for example, there's for housing, there's promoting housing diversity and encouraging infill development. Those are a couple of goals, and the strategies are listed there to guide future growth. Chapter 4 talks about the economy. Next slide. And it focuses on the town's economic structure, employment landscape, income levels, and fiscal health. The chapter provides an analysis of the current business environment, workforce trends, and the town's reliance on residential property taxes, and outlines challenges related to job availability, economic diversification, and income inequality. It also discusses opportunities for revitalization through programs such as Main Street Initiative. So the goals are meant to support the vision statements that were mentioned in chapter 2. And they range from supporting small businesses to leveraging tourism, enhancing infrastructure to help boost the economy in town, and even implementing a Main Street improvement program when it's possible in the future. And I'll briefly go over the from 5 to 9, if you want to go to the next slide. So the town's environmental or natural environment and geographic features, water resources, environmental corridors, things, and the impacts of climate change, they're mentioned in chapter 5. It kind of aims to provide a comprehensive understanding of the environmental assets the town has and how that has influenced development, and how it also outlines strategies to balance growth and environmental stewardship. Next slide. Chapter 6, it focuses on the town's land use patterns and community design strategies to guide future development while preserving its historic charm. The chapter examines existing zoning regulations, growth boundaries, and design elements that contribute to the town's character, and outlines goals, strategies to promote sustainable growth, improve connectivity, and balanced development with historic preservation. And I believe the next slide has the growth boundary and opportunity area. So these are the areas that can, once included, could be annexed in the future. The growth boundary is, a more clearly defined boundary, whereas the growth opportunity area is a buffer that extends beyond the growth boundary, and based on what's available, either in the sewer, water-wise, or whatever works out in terms of economic development, that's when something like a growth opportunity area would come in handy to give that flexibility. So that's so this has to be discussed with the county as well. We have before it is adopted. So when this plan goes to the county for comments, they'll give us feedback, and the planning commission will go from there. The next chapter, transportation, it provides an analysis of town's transportation network, highlighting existing conditions, challenges, and future strategies to create a more efficient, safe, and sustainable system. It talks about the few transportation modes that the town has and infrastructure limitations. And it also proposes improvements to enhance connectivity and mobility for residents. And then next slide, chapter 8, that's about community facilities. So all the essential services and facilities that contribute to the residents' social, economic, and cultural well-being. It covers various aspects, including education, recreation, public safety, healthcare, water and sewer infrastructure, and social services. And then the next chapter, chapter 9, is municipal growth. It outlines the town's anticipated growth and any corresponding demands on infrastructure and public services and land use planning. It has an analysis of population trends and zoning density projections with potential impacts on growth on services like water, sewer, schools, and parks. And obviously the focus is to make sure that sustainable expansion that meets the needs of the current and future residents while maintaining the town's current character. And then the last chapter is on implementation, which is currently being reviewed by the Planning Commission, but it kind of takes all the goals that were mentioned in chapter 3 to 9 and turn them into actionable steps to make sure that these the goals become a reality. And it talks about the guiding principles for implementation, short-term and long-term action steps on across various focus areas. And then the mechanism for tracking progress and adapting strategies over time. So that's an overview of um, the draft. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you. That was a lot. It was months and months of work, I understand. So I want to thank you to all the work that you and your committee put into this, because it was very well thought out with very specific short and long-term goals. So I just want to start with that and thank you for that. I have a few questions, but I would like to open it up to the other commissioners first, if you have any. Any questions? No? Commissioner Turnquist?
Not at this time.
Okay. So I'm sorry, reading glasses back on. I guess this is obviously just a presentation and overview. And I like how through each chapter, it's kind of condensed down into the chapter 10, which is the implementation, which kind of summarizes like your actionable steps. You know, that's very helpful. But I did have a question about page 10-2 for implementation strategies. Under housing for short term, one of the action steps didn't seem to align with anything that I read in the plan itself, which was conduct an annual survey of housing needs for various groups, including students at Mount St. Mary's University. I went through the draft and I didn't see anything regarding student housing, so I was confused as to why that's one of our actionable short-term steps, when all the other ones seem to align with what's described in the plan.
So that's an oversight. So in earlier drafts, we did put student housing as one of the goals or strategies for achieving diverse housing options. But since we're already working on that, we took that off, and this just needs to be taken off this page.
Okay, so that would be a change that would have to be in there. So have we already made, from what I understand, we're still in discussion about the student housing. So I'm confused about like if the town's already working on, are you talking about with working on it with the proposed?
Yeah, I think what she is referring to is the proposed ordinance that's before the board to
Right.
allow student housing.
Right.
So in the comp plan, it was written that this would be something that the town would work on, but we're already currently working on it. So it didn't need to be included in the comp plan,
Okay.
if that makes
understood.
sense. Yes.
Okay, so
So-
working on making a decision,
Correct.
trying to come up with which way we're going to go.
Right. So
Understood.
that would mean that bulleted item could come out of there under implementation.
Okay, all right, I understand, because I was going back and trying to see where that referenced, so that makes more sense. Also, as far as the demographics, I had actually a resident asked me, this was a good question. As far as all the breakdown of the demographics that you received, do we know? I mean, because we have properties that are also portioned out by, rented versus owned, so we can see that. Do we know as far as our population? I would assume that includes renters or students who might be in town limits as well. I mean, how do they come up? The question came up because that age group, that really young age group of like the college students, seem to be high demographically compared to the rest of the town or the rest of the ages. So how do they collect that information accurately? Do you know?
So this was all census data. So if you're a student but not a resident of Emmitsburg, you wouldn't be counted as,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
part of the population.
So
Yeah.
does that mean any people who are in rental houses wouldn't be counted then?
They are counted.
They are
So in
counted.
your census, it asks you, are you an owner, renter, or what have you?
Okay,
So assuming they filled that out correctly, then the more correctly it's filled out, the more that are filled out, the
okay,
more accurate it is. And for those who don't fill out census, then census has people going around and doing those for that reason to get
okay.
the most accurate.
So this wouldn't include any students who are currently living in town?
It could,
It could, but
it
if
could.
we
It
don't.
just depends on how they reside, because they may be counted
Okay.
at home.
Okay, okay,
And-
Or it could be when the census was done. If it was done during the summer when there was
right.
those houses would have been empty.
Yeah,
So there would have been nobody home.
it's like trying to get an estimated population at schools because they only do counting by attendance on one day. And that's it. So like they tell everybody, come to school that day, here's free pizza. We need you to show up so we can get our pupil
Get the right
funding.
numbers.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so then. Oh, and then this isn't necessarily anything that would change the plan per se. It was just an inquiry. The section on schools, when obviously we're showing Emmitsburg Elementary is way under enrollment as of right now. And Mayor Davis did mention in his talks with FCPS, I think you said that we were far from being on their radar for any kind of renovations or improvements in Emmitsburg. And if and when we ever did outgrow that school, they indicated we would need additional land is what I think you said. Like they were not able to, or maybe it was when we were talking, that they would not be able to rebuild or a new building on the existing land, that they would actually need a whole different section of land if we ever got to that point. If our development and our growth boundaries come to fruition, is there what happens then if FCPS is looking for a place to build a school? Is it up to them or is it something that the town has to kind of keep in the back of their head?
In the county.
It's on the county? Okay,
Which I think we could still be good partners in trying to help with that for
Oh,
sure.
right.
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's a pretty good sized lot over there.
Yeah, they said it was because of the river, or not the river, the little creek
Wetland,
that,
the
yeah, the
wetland,
wetland. They needed something like 16 solid acres, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, and then I saw too that you made, that the analogy was drawn because of the impact fees would be essential for, for schools and whatnot. So how does that work with our impact fees in schools? Because I saw that it mentioned impact fees and we need to keep that in mind for schools. I thought that would
We
be
don't have
separate.
impact fees for school.
Okay, so that would be a
'cause we
county
don't- Because
thing.
we don't fund the school system.
Right, exactly. So
directly.
maybe I read that wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But that leads me to another thing. Did we as a town also want to look at impact fees? I think it came up at one point. I know we have to get through other things first, but I would just like to keep it in the forefront of our mind before we have a major development come in, that we did say we wanted to go back and look at impact fees at some point. Overall, I think you did a fabulous job. It's a lot of hard work. You went above and beyond soliciting community involvement. Everybody who attended the comp plan workshops only had favorable things to say, how wonderfully and smoothly they were run and how engaging it was to be able to collaborate as a town. So I do want to thank you for your hard work. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Moving on.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, thank you.
Great job.
Yes, good job. And thank you for the printout with the color because that really helps with the maps. So I appreciate that. All right. Our final item is for discussion related to the water and sewer tap fees. All right. So looking at your packet, it looks like there's additional information than we had last time. So thank you for that.
Sure.
I found it really interesting to see RK&K's report as well as where is it? Oh, on page 51, when it went back and forth between the current tap fee versus with adjustment fee. That was interesting to make that comparison. Ms. Phillips, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we go into discussion or that you wanted to point out with the additional documents?
No, I think what we wanted to show and what the board had asked for would be what some of the previous development projects paid in tap fees or would have paid in tap fees if it had come to fruition. And then what the tap fee would be if we used a capacity adjustment factor as proposed by the engineer. And Azealia and I had a long meeting with them to go over, so we understood their mindset and where they had developed their information from. So basically what it is you'd continue with whatever your tap fees are right now. It's 8,200 for water and 8,000 for sewer. And then for non-residential, you would base their tap fees off a capacity adjustment factor, as is outlined in that table. We can expand the table to make it more detailed, or to add different types of development projects, but no, I don't really have anything else extra.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. The additional information is very helpful. Commissioners, I turn to you to open the discussion.
Yes.
Commissioner
So-
Hoover.
So I was, I guess, a little bit confused. So the tap fees is one thing, but the fixture chart really is not the fee portion. That's just to tell us how many taps a non-residential dwelling would be.
Correct.
1 tap, 10
Mhm.
taps, 100 taps, whatever.
Right.
But the fee, whether it be one or whether it be multiple, would be at the moment the 8,000, the 8,200,
Right. So 15 fixtures equals one
1 tap,
tap.
right?
Yeah.
So
How's that working?
are we discussing that $8,000 number, or are we discussing the fixture?
My understanding, the direction to staff was to investigate how we calculate our fees and
$8,000 portion?
how we calculate non-residential fees, whether we're going to stick with fixtures or use this capacity adjustment factor. That was my understanding of the direction. Maybe I was mistaken, but from everybody that I've talked to, right at the very top, everybody says that our tap fees and connection fee, whatever you want to call them, are in line with surrounding municipalities. So we kind of focused on this aspect of it.
And our tap fee does not include the connection portion, because then the contractor pays 100% of all connection. The physical work to do that.
They do the actual work,
Right.
correct?
So they pay for that and perform that work or contract with themselves. So our tap fee of the 8,000, the 8,200 is strictly just the cost of the tap
Correct,
that the town gets paid for the cost of creating that tap.
right.
Well, believe it or not, Mr. Mayor, I think our tap fee is correct. We're damn close.
I know, right?
You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
That's what I think. I mean, and the reason I say that, I mean, if you take Emmett Gardens, probably a really good example, the well at Emmett Gardens that's been talked about for decades to put online. Whatever that well would cost to put online is X dollars, and it's going to create X number of taps, 250 gallons. I would divide that number, total cost to put it online, divided by the number of taps it creates us. And if it's, that should be the cost of tap, a water tap. And sewer taps probably a little more expensive because it costs a little bit more to do the sewer, but the same calculation. based on water particularly, I think you're within the ballpark of that. But I do believe that $8,000 then should be considered. I think we had this little bit of discussion, particularly emails, that money is related to increased capacity. Them $8,000 chunks and $200 chunks for new capacity, because that's what you're buying, new capacity. But I think generally going back and forth with myself, looking at it, I think the $8,000 probably for the moment. Now, fixture count probably is something that needs to be looked at. And I don't know. Quite honestly, not quite sure where to begin with that one.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. I think Frederick County has a fixture count that where you count and has all these, but if it's this, but if it's that, and but if it's something else.
Right, our fixture count is fashioned off of Frederick County's
Correct.
fixture chart. In my research and RK&K's research, at least in this general area, we are the only two municipalities, counties that are using fixture charts. Most have transitioned to either basing it off of usage or they're basing it off of a capacity adjustment factor, which was outlined in their memo.
Right. I'm just not sure how we get to that capacity adjuster, based on, if it's, I used the obvious example, a church, and certainly we have several churches around that we can do examples to say what is a fair.
So for example, in RK&K's memo or study, their unit is 1 seat. And based off of that seat, it's got a capacity adjustment factor, an ERU factor, however you want to, a 0.012. And I think that's similar without going back through to what the county has as well. I think fairly close to that.
Right. I'm just not sure how the county came up with all their list, because they had a big list of if it's a church or if it's a hotel or some type of store or whatever, that it had a different factor. I'm not quite sure how they came up with those.
So in our meeting with RK&K, they kind of gave us a brief history, how they come up with these capacity adjustment factors. Apparently this is like, they've done a lot of studies, a lot of research, where they establish these connections, basically linking the establishments based off of their usage and established history with a predictable ERU estimate for daily average. So somebody that gets paid a lot more than I do, these engineers that do these studies have looked at, just since we're talking about churches and church usage, and I think based off the average usage for churches, they come up with the 0.012 per seat adjustment factor. One of the things though, that when you do a capacity adjustment factor, if that's the route the board decides to go, one of the things you have to write into it is where you reevaluate a year worth of usage. To make sure that the cap fee that was calculated was reasonable, wasn't too high or wasn't too low. And that's probably more or it's for all of them that use this capacity adjustment factor, but whether for, I'll throw like for the distillery, no, there's not a lot of data on water usage for a distillery. So you would want to reevaluate in a year to see where their usage is, for the church, does the congregation go up in a year? Are they using more water? Are they using less than what we anticipated? So you would want to reevaluate, and that would have to be written into your code.
That makes sense. So, and then the other municipalities within Frederick County or outside of Frederick County that use the capacity, not the fixture count.
Chart.
How do they do that? Do they wait over a year's worth of period or whatever amount of time and say the average was X?
Yeah, I started looking at that, and some do for 6 months, and some do for a year reevaluation. In talking to the engineers, they recommend a year because we only do bill 4 times a year, and the usage can go up in the summer, go down in the winter. So if you take a whole year snapshot, you'll have a better idea of what the actual usage is.
Yeah.
And then they'll calculate that, and then they can either, and that's board decision, go back and say, you need to pay X amount of dollars. Your tap fee was undercalculated. This is what it should have been. Now you owe X amount. Or we severely overcharged you, and the town would then owe you X amount of dollars back.
Yeah.
And that's a board decision, but that's typically what we have seen in our research.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Years ago, I'm not sure how they do it now, but Tony Town they didn't charge them. They waited a year.
Oh, and didn't collect any
So
fees.
they didn't collect the tap fee up front. And they, after whatever it was, a year or whatever, they done a calculation of the entire year, divided it by, I guess, 365 days, and said, you owe us this many taps.
Okay.
And then, they were getting they were getting their water bill, but they weren't getting a tap fee up front. So you're not really out any money, but
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do it that way or not. That's what they used to
We can look.
some time ago, but they get a reasonable average or something.
Yeah. We can look at Tawny Town. If this is, I mean, if this is direction the board wants to go in, then we certainly will work with, our town attorney and pull information from these other municipalities and get an idea of how they handle it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to best go to a consumption value, or either to do it annually or whatever, but I'm kind of in my mind leaning towards more get rid of the fixture count. Cause I just don't like all the fixture count plus all the other, what if it's this kind of business, that kind of business, kind of.
Well, the problem I see with the fixture count is you're kind of controlled by the county, whatever they change their building codes to. And they say, okay, I'll use the insurance brokers, for example. It's a little office building with, 4 offices,
Not much more in the house.
but they had to put a slop sink in and all this extra stuff because it was a county code. Well, as you can see, what insurance brokers paid for water taps, unbelievable. And basically what it was, they took over a house that had a dentist office in part of it. And they still had to pay that much because of the new codes by the county. So they're kind of governed by that.
And that's why
I think they had to have 2 or 3 slop sinks or something. It was something ridiculous. But it was that, they counted as taps.
by water fountain and all.
Oh, yeah.
For codes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the consumption rate needs some more thought process, but the consumption rate may be the cleaner, more accurate. Just how long do we wait to get consumption, and when do we do the bill, and before, during, after, or whatever. But
So how does the consumption rate work if you're only looking at it over a year and you're not at yet capacity? That's my concern.
for a new type of, like use the
Mhm.
distillery again,
Mhm.
that could,
Right.
in either way it could, because I'm doing fixtures and I don't use that much fixtures, and I have a high tap requirement, but I have a low water consumption. And then the consumption for the first year of a new startup business,
Mhm.
restaurant or whatever, could be somewhat low. The second year, third year be higher, but as town manager said earlier, it had to be what we do in the town code. Do we do it that it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, how many times do we monitor it?
Right.
That's why I say I think it's gonna take a little bit more thought, a little bit more input, but
Well, I mean, and we
to get
do,
it.
the insurance broker already paid those fees.
Correct. He's been.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
That's a done deal.
yeah, I was just
Right,
using
these
that
are
for an
all done-
example.
Yeah, I was just
But you
saying
can
these are
see,
done
he
deals,
has
and
four,
then-
4 employees in there and paid all that.
Right, I mean, I'm just saying like
That's-
that, like the lawyer pointed out, Ms. Powell, about the equity issue, that if I'm just gonna leave with, I don't know what the right answer is.
There is none.
There is, because I can see the point of, wow, well, if I was the insurance broker, I paid out all this money. And now the formula is changing. But at the same time, changing the model, I don't want to inadvertently shoot us in the foot.
Go the wrong way. Well, I mean, there's
Right.
other municipalities that do the capacity one, and for us, for code wise to think about, and consider was like, what do they find that works or does not work for them? The same thing as the fixture count, but there's probably going to be more options for us to look at in the consumption of how other municipalities do it within or with outside of Frederick County.
I
Which are the
know,
same things, startup businesses or what have you, how that has
Right,
positively or negatively affected them
right.
and to whose advantage.
yeah, I know the town had previously provided a list of tap fees for a number of other municipalities. So that we could, kind of compare that. So I think we have that data. I mean, RK&K is saying in their memo that, other municipalities other than Frederick County, they don't use the capacity adjustment factor. They don't use that and the fixture count to determine the water and sewer tap fees. They state in their memo that, based on, other towns and even industry standards, that the chart that they recommended is what is pretty much used. I was looking at the history of the tap fees. And in 2008, they were like, including the surcharges, they were like 11,000 for water and 11,500 for sewer. So our tap fees have come way down. That's on page 43. Since 2008. So they haven't they've come down. They haven't increased in many, 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 many years. There is room within the average that RK&K presents to increase that by 1,000 or 1,500. But I think where we're at is probably okay. But if there is a little room to increase that, RK&K suggested that we perhaps set different fees and ERU factor for different type of residential units. I don't think we should mess with our residential. I think it should be either 8,000 or 8,200, whatever the number is. I don't think we should use a capacity factor for residential. I think we just need to look at our non-residential, our businesses, our commercial. These numbers seem fair and equitable. I went back and compared RK&K's proposal for Christ Community Church, which came out to 38,000 for water and sewer. And that's in line with the town of Thurmont, the city of Frederick, and Frederick County. So I think the numbers line up. I don't think they're too low or too high. And, I trust that RK&K did the work to provide good data. I think this new system would more base the tap fees on usage versus fixture count, which would be fair. So I like it. I'd like to adopt it with a consumption factor or consumption review after year one, if that's.
So are we looking at the adjustment factor and consumption over a year, both of those, or one or the other?
So no, so you would write, so this is not in ordinance form at all yet. So it would have to be put in ordinance form. In your ordinance, you would write the review. Whether you're doing 6 months or a year, you would write in there the consumption review and then what the board wants to do based off of the findings, if it's too low, too high. I don't have any examples of that with me right now.
No, I guess my question is, are we looking at the ERU adjustment factor? Like for the church, it would have been .01, no, wait a minute.
Mhm.
0.012 adjustment factor per seat, right?
Right.
In addition, and then looking at the consumption after that?
No,
Okay.
it's
so
one or the other.
One or the other?
No,
No,
no.
No.
it's both?
No, you would look, so just use Christ Community Church, for example, and you do the point, right? Am I right? Okay. She's looking at me like I'm wrong. So you would do, so for Christ Community Churches, it's proposed 198 seats in their plan, correct? If you calculate it all out, it's 19,483 for water and $19,008 for sewer. You would calculate the tap fees based off of that. In a year, you would look at their usage for that year to make sure it is in line with what
You charge.
we charged. If for some reason their usage is way higher than what this calculation factor would come out to based off of each ERU is required to have for 250 gallons per day. So you can multiply that all out and come out to what the usage should look like. So based off those calculations, if their usage is in line with that, then there's no change, there's no recommendation, it's a done deal. But based off the usage, what the calculation would be, and let's say it's, I don't know, 50,000 gallons more a year than what we had calculated based off of that adjustment factor, then you would do the review and then you would come back and say, we needed to charge you 2 more taps or 1 more tap. So it's a kind of a both thing. The capacity adjustment factor is now, the review of the usage is a year from now.
So that's the part that I understand now what you're saying, but that's the part that confuses me in the sense that charging for what is possible. So like if something were to move into a space and make use of all of that, it's going to be a lot higher. So basing it just after 1 year.
So I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So let's say, just for argument's sake, Christ Community Church comes in, they pay their tap fees based off the capacity adjustment factor 0.012. 2 years from now, they move and they sell it to a restaurant that's got kitchens and seating. Their tap fee is going to be recalculated based off of their usage. This is what we do anyway. So for example, if you looked at your chart where you
because
see
that's a
that
change.
Duncan,
But that's a change of use.
right, but you see where Duncan did not pay any tap fees because they took over the car wash that already had enough tap fees for what the Duncan usage was going to be. So let's just say a restaurant now moves into Christ Community Church. It's a change of usage, but then it also would look at their tap fees because they're going to have more. Their usage is going to go up. So you go back and you look at your chart thing here and you go to where a restaurant is, and then you would calculate the tap fees. So say Christ Community Church paid $38,000 in tap fees, but the restaurant, based off the calculation, their tap fees would be $50,000. So they would owe an additional $12,000 in tap fees.
Right, but like Commissioner Hoover was saying, that would be a change of use. I'm just talking about if you build a big building and you're not using it, and then a couple of years from now, you have a huge, you're working at to capacity. You're using all the classrooms. You might use it during the week for different daycares or whatnot. It's going to be very different than what it is in that first year. And I don't see.
Can you do adjustment after every? Can you write it in there that it gets adjusted after every year?
Oh, I think that's a lot unfair. I think that's very unfair. We'll always be going up and down. We'll never be. We'll be paying this business for the overage and be charging another business for the under. We've done
But you're gonna do that now?
That's on,
So you only gonna
not
do it
every
for the
year,
one time
not every
at the
year I
beginning?
wouldn't do it every year.
So we're,
That's
so we're not,
that-
I
that ain't
mean,
gonna work.
that's the issue I have with the capacity. I mean, what is being consumed is because we're at any given time,
It's always a snapshot.
it's always a
point.
snapshot, right?
And that's where the fixture count, I guess, probably originates from, is that it's a snapshot of that moment, what they plan or project to do.
Right, exactly.
Rather,
But I mean, like a residential, for example, it's a flat fee no matter what they
it's always
use.
one tap.
Right. So,
For a single
Right,
dwelling
right.
unit.
for a single
yes.
dwelling
Yes.
unit, yes.
Well, I think their full capacity is 198 seats, and that's what we're going to charge. That's what we would charge up front.
Mhm.
So technically, it's already measured at full capacity to establish the tap fee.
But then it can be adjusted back down if they're not using that much.
I don't think we would adjust it back down.
I have to do some more research on that, review.
Well, that's what we just talked about. Like if they're not using as much as,
I don't think we're going to give refunds. I think
We
if the consumption
not
is
just
quite
say
a bit
that?
high.
No, I said in our research, we've seen where some do refunds, some don't do
Okay.
refunds, some charge more, but they all do their review, whether it's 6 months or a year. And that's for the board to decide. If the board doesn't want to give a refund, then we don't write it into the code.
so that would allow us, if we don't give a refund, to go higher, but not lower. If that's the
Correct.
direction.
The
that
board
we
can write
decide.
it how they want to.
Okay.
Yes.
I think if we got some history from some other municipalities, do the consumption
Right.
of how they actually do it, we'd have something more to discuss and
Right.
bounce around with.
Right.
Hopefully from some of those who have learned from the goods and the bads from.
And I know your town attorney has experience in it because she's the one that actually first mentioned it to me about the review periods. Yes. So we certainly can talk to her. We're
And
supposed to have a
didn't
meeting.
Najila post something on MML asking other towns how they handle it?
I haven't heard back, unfortunately.
I think another town recently posted the same kind of question on MML. So no guidance from them.
Well, and then the other thing that we may or may not consider, because I think Commissioner Hoover, you were the one who mentioned it originally, is when we're looking at all the ERU adjustment factors, we don't necessarily have to apply to every single kind of non-residential.
Right, they had one for everything.
Yeah, like what if,
Currently, Frederick County does. It seems they have one, they got
right?
a factor for everything. where they
Right.
Just, well, why do I have the chart then?
I mean, is it possible
Something
that we
like
just
that.
look at doing it for churches? Is that an option?
Everything's an option.
Well, I'm just throwing that out
I mean, it
because,
could be, yes, but I mean, like, you go back to the distillery again. But what factor would that be on?
well, as long as we charge higher instead of refunds, I'm all in favor. No, I just don't want to, like I said, shoot our water fund in the foot
Well,
by not thinking ahead,
that-
but thinking.
Well,
it
that's
through.
why I say, I think,
Yeah.
maybe we ought to take a pause and just get more information from
Yeah.
those that are doing it other ways to give us something to.
Yeah.
Look at how some other
Evaluate.
people are doing it. I mean, just as big concern to me is if we change it, up or down, what's it do to our budget? I'd like to see, real life, say if we cut the church's tap fee to X, and that boils out, what's it do to our budget once we start playing these games?
Right. I mean, and the churches, well, we don't have that many on the horizon that we have to compare to because we don't have a lot of non-residential buildings or businesses coming in right now from scratch. So the full effect, we may not see until way down the road. But it would take a hit out of the water fund, you're
Yeah.
correct.
But our rates are so much higher than other municipalities because we adopted Frederick County's plan, but we didn't adopt the adjustment factor. So we're not going to we're not going to attract businesses with the amount of tap fees for the cost. So, I mean, our tap fees are outrageous compared to other municipalities because we don't have an adjustment factor.
I'm sorry. I wasn't listening. You caught me. I'm sorry.
God dag it.
I
Our Emmitsburg's rates are not in line with other municipalities because we adopted Frederick County's fixture count. Okay, so we adopted theirs, but we didn't adopt the part about the adjustment factor.
Correct.
So you have a church who uses very little water or versus Rudders who uses a ton of water, and they pay the same amount per fixture, which is the fixtures, as Frank said, are determined by at the county level, how many fixtures are needed, even if you're not going to use those on a daily basis.
Right.
So we're not going to be able to attract new businesses to Emmitsburg to pay tap fees if we can't bring these under some sort of control and in line with other towns.
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily out of line for every single type of non-residential.
For Christ
But
Community
but for
Church,
churches is where, looking at this, the list, that's where you see for me, the disparity from page 51.
Yeah.
You know, that's a glaring disparity there compared to.
Yeah, and Commissioner Turnquist, while I agree with you, partially, the thing we don't want to do is compare to other towns because everybody else is in the same shape we are, including the city of Baltimore. I see what they're doing. They're doing something ridiculous, just like we have to, because nobody paid attention to their water funds over all these years. Walkersville's getting ready to do something. Thurmont's getting ready to do something because all of their water funds are going broke. And it's just because it was out of sight, out of mind. And nothing we can do about the past. We got to figure out how to fix it for the next group coming in.
We
That's-
maybe should strongly consider raising our tap fees. If
Well-
we haven't increased since 2004, they actually went down.
The one thing you got to remember about your tap fee, that's only a one-time fee. To where you got to make sure that we're taking in enough money to make our water every day.
Right. So
And that seems to be where we're in trouble. We're not taking enough in usage fees. You saw what happened last year with we put the $300,000 into the water fund out of ARPA that we were allowed to do because of the usage. It's gone. That was $300,000. So that's almost the same amount that we're going to get for the 49 homes for Emmett Ridge 2. And that $400,000 will be gone 1 year to where your usage fee is where you have to try to balance that. And I know that's not a popular thing, but it is what it is. And I wish there was some magic formula there, but it's just not.
Right. So, I just want to chime in on that because you're right. I mean, the tap fee has a very different effect on the budget because the tap fee is intended to increase the capacity of the plant or put on a new well or enlarge your sewer plant or what have you. You know, and it's just like the mayor said, though, you know, the tap fee is that one-time thing for the growing and expansion of the system, water, sewer, whichever.
But I think it's also for repairs.
No.
What does our code say?
That's exactly what it says in the code.
For repairs?
Yep.
So it's for the daily operation, maintenance.
So here we're backed into a corner again.
all
We
fun-
don't have the capacity to grow that much. So we're kind of backed into a corner to say, okay, your tap fees are what's supposed to help you with repairs. But we can't grow because we don't have the water capacity. So it's
Right. And I mean, and when you compare it to other municipalities or towns, I don't know if they're in the red that we are currently with our water fund. So it's really hard to make a direct comparison.
was speaking with the mayors. I would say over half of Frederick County is.
In the red?
Yes.
Well, it's not, I mean, our goal is to get out of the red. So we
Yes.
don't want to keep digging. up
Yes,
there.
ma'am. I
Yeah.
agree.
Anyhow, so.
But it's interesting because if you look at the, with the adjustment factor for RK and K versus the current tap fee, in most of those cases, the town would make more money than if we stuck with the old structure outside of the church. I mean, Silo Hill Plaza, we'd make almost 18K under the new plan, and what we charged was 15K, 16K. So
Oh, yeah, I agree.
That's because he increased the size of his building.
Yeah. sure.
Dollar General, 24K under the new plan, and what we charged was 16,000. So it's not sending us in a deficit other than for like a church or a business that would have a small adjustment factor based on usage.
But wait, is this with the adjustment factor just of the,
RK and K proposal.
right, but is that just with the multiplier with the ERU?
Yeah, that's their ERU that they factored in what compared to what we currently charge to what it would be with their new adjustment factor in there.
Right, but that doesn't include a consumption review.
No,
Right.
No, because you're assuming for this, we're assuming the consumption was, the number was projected was going to be right on.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So is there direction on where we want to go from here?
can RK and K provide more details on what other municipalities do?
Listen, Gio and I were just talking about that. We're going to reach out to RK&K and to Leslie tomorrow to get their recommendations or their input on their review on what municipalities do as far as a review after you establish it. Because I think that's the missing link that we don't have. But from what RK&K's letter has said, that in their research and history, most places are going off of the capacity adjustment factor. Once you have your tap fee set for residential, then you know how to calculate your non-residential based off of the capacity adjustment factor. And then the last piece then would be whatever review period the board wants to set and how they want to handle that review period. From the staff level, we like the adjustment factor. It takes the fixture count out of it, which can human error with calculating fixtures on every end can lead to tap fees not being calculated correctly. This seems like a more fair approach.
So going back to the history of tap fees, we're at 8,200 right now for water. I'm looking at page 43. But didn't it back in the day, wasn't there like a, wait a minute, the surcharge that would have made it more than 8,200 total?
You had the surcharge plus the 4.
Right, so is that something we look at as well? Do we put in a surcharge or increase the
You
tap
can,
fee?
as it's been said here many times, you can do whatever you want to do by ordinance. But I think at this point right now, the surcharge probably is, I don't know, probably not the best way to go at the moment. The surcharge was done back then. I forget the year what it was on, but it was done back then because we had such, the infrastructure was in worse condition than it is now. There was a lot of work done on infrastructure to bring money in. There was development going on. That's when Brookfield was being developed and Pembroke was probably just about being done. A little bit of Solid Hill was being done. Southgate was not being done yet. So the surcharges was added because they had that moment to capitalize on some growth and be able to develop and improve the infrastructure to the best they could with that surplus of money coming in. As that growth had, mostly come to an end, mostly. The surcharges was lifted then. I don't know what year, but they were lifted. But as you see, the tap fees actually doubled because they went from 4,000 to 8,000.
Right.
So they actually doubled. So you kind of took surcharge away, but then you put 50% of it back by increasing your tap fees to what is probably currently a realistic rate for the tap fees. I don't think the tap fees are out of line. The question really is, are we charging for too few or too many taps? The individual tap fee of $8,000 or $8,200, whichever it may be, I believe is, within ballpark, within reason, I think close to the amount that we need for that capacity, for that new capacity.
Just putting this out, the town of Thurmont
Say that right?
does charge a water impact fee in addition to their connection fee and a sewer impact fee. In addition to their connection fee, but their connection fees are lower than what ours are. So their total, this was as of December of 23. I don't know if they've made any changes since then. I know they're talking about it. As of the end of December of 23, their water was 7,555 and their sewer was 8,990.
Is that just for the tap or is that the tap and the connection fee?
It's the water connection and a water impact.
Water connection and water, so, okay, so
It's the whole,
the impact is the fee, is the
Whole-
tap itself,
whole shebang.
correct? So they're calling it the impact fee in the actual tap.
Tawny Town calls theirs a benefit assessment. So their water connection's only 750, their sewer connection's only 750. This was fiscal year 22. I think it's gone up since then, but they have a benefit assessment of 5,110 for water and a benefit assessment of 7,790 for sewer, making their water 7,860 and their sewer 8,540.
And they pay for the actual connection.
That's what it sounds like.
Like where we have the contractor do his own connection out of his own pocket.
Right.
I would just ask whatever you all decide to do, that we're upfront, honest, not trying to sneak something. I shouldn't say sneak, but do fees that people don't see about, that's happening someplace else close by, like in the state of Maryland, that you're having all these fees. We're not raising,
I'm not trying to sneak anything.
we're not
in.
raising.
I just want to make
taxes, but
sure
what
that
we're
we can
gonna-
get out of the.
Yeah,
out of the red.
we're gonna double your,
Surcharge.
your surcharge stuff. So
Right.
I just want us to be honest with people. So we got to do what we got to
Cost
do.
is a cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Call what you want to call it, but
Right.
it's still a cost.
Right.
So, but no, but to answer your question back to the surcharge, I don't think now's the appropriate time for it.
Okay,
And I mean, a lot of infrastructure work was done back then, still a lot more to be done yet,
correct.
but
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah. All right, so is the direction to reach out to RK&K to get more information on other municipalities and
think-
then the
I don't care if it's RK or
review.
whoever staff.
review period?
So if it would be okay, I'd like to, since it seems like it's favorable for the capacity adjustment factor, I would like to put an ordinance together that would include the recommended review for the board to review, so you have an idea of what your code would look like based off of having the capacity adjustment factor, but then also having the section related to review. And you can still have it as a discussion item, but to put it in the format, like start to, so we can start moving forward, it can be in draft. It would be the recommended review that we get from Leslie and from RK&K. And then the board can obviously decide which direction it wants to go in, if it likes it, if it doesn't like it. That way we can start moving forward, at least putting something together.
I like it.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Give us something to work
Does
on
that sound good?
and a modified as need
Okay.
be, or not.
And I just want to thank you for a great discussion and throwing out everything there is out there. This is great. So just thank you for that.
When this does go to vote, though, you would need a public hearing.
Yes. Indeed.
And I'm out of town that day.
Don't worry, we're a long ways away there, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
We're a long ways away.
So you know what
I'll be
we're
retired.
All right, so does that give you enough direction then, Ms. Willetts?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so ending that, we move on to setting the agenda for the next meeting, which will be on March 3rd.
For March 3rd, I didn't add anything from tonight, so if you wanted to add anything from March 3rd. For consent agenda, I have filing of the 2024 Annual Planning Commission report. Number 2, for consideration, appoint Silas Bioke to the Sustainable Communities Work Group. And then if you let me know about the Planning Commission, we can add that as well. based off of the upcoming workshop, we did add number one, hold a public hearing and then approval of ordinance 25-02, amendment to chapter 17 of the town code to allow and establish requirements for student housing in the village zone district. And obviously that's dependent on the outcome of the workshop on Monday. Number two would be consideration approval of ordinance 25-03, amending town code to establish a rental registration program. And number three would be for consideration approval of FY24 budget transfers. I don't know if you want to add from tonight's meeting, anything? Or no?
I do have one thing I'd like to add, and I'm not sure how to put this, but the Paul Street water line going in. We just discovered, or I just discovered, that there are no sewer cleanouts on any of those properties on DePaul Street. While the road is tore up and the construction's going on, do we want to go ahead and add sewer cleanouts there? Now, we're talking a nice chunk of money, but is that something that we can bring up to talk about? And
For discussion?
yes,
Okay, because then, if you get a favorable discussion, then we can put it out to bid. Let's go out to bid.
now would that have to go out to bid? Or can it be a change order since it's on a current contract?
Because it's, no, it's not part of the DePaul Street water line project. It's sewer. It would have to go out to bid. Because it's
Oh,
not funded by any of the funding
See, I'm not
agencies.
sure how that would work then, because you're not going to have one construction company letting you in. Well, we'll have to discuss it, so can't do it now, so.
Will the ordinance be ready, do you think, the draft ordinance to discuss for sewer tap fees?
I don't think so.
Do we want to put that on as
We got it ready? 'Cause I'll be here.
tentative?
We could put that on as tentative, especially, I mean, seeing how student housing falls out too. Like we need to, I don't want to completely, student housing moves forward. I don't want to add that onto it. Why don't we just put it down as tentative?
For discussion.
Yes.
So that would be for discussion ordinance 25-04. Water and sewer connection fees.
And then I have two things that I would like to circle back to, whether or not it's March or April. I have no preference. Just like an update on the electric vehicle charging stations. I know we had talked about just looking into, just for informational purposes, what it would take to tie that to a credit card if we wanted to move in that direction. And
I'll put that under administrative business.
sure. It'd just be nice to know what we're looking at. And then I know Mr. Mayor and Ms. Village, you were talking about coming back to look at the rent for town-owned properties, if that we could have hit that in April or May.
Yes, very much
April
so.
or May, okay.
I mean, April would be preferable if we're able. Anybody else have anything else? Okay. All right.
I make a motion to accept the meeting agenda. Meeting agenda for March 3rd as presented. Written
Second.
Down.
Is there a second?
Second?
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. So at this point, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Meeting is adjourned at 9:14 PM.